Okay, welcome back to Solo Roll Mangging, Phandelver and Below with Tales of Argosa. We're hip deep in the Red Brand's lair underneath a manor. We have cleared out a few rooms. Plenty of rooms to go, though. And I'm sure the biggest threats await. Well, I know. I mean, I know what awaits, but you might not know. So there's that. Yeah, I mean, we're slightly beat up. But aside from that, we kind of have most of our resources. We're short a rage, but other than that. And Grognan's luck is diminishing. Which is a big factor, because he can't just cleave endlessly. And luck is hard to get back. So I've been doing the cleaves willy-nilly, but yeah, it takes like 5 days of rest in a safe location to get back 1 point of luck. For so every cleave I do, you know, that is a factor. I mean, sure, I could just say, I'm gonna sit here for a month and just sit around. And many DMs would just be like, okay, month goes by, you're back to full. Yeah, you know. But I think a good campaign and a good world has things moving in the background. Things change. Depending on where you're at, what is happening, it might not really matter to you. You know, like if your DM's and, you know, he's writing out his notes and he's like, oh, there's this current like war between some kobolds and the gnolls, and the gnolls won, you know, because a month went by, or I don't know, something like that. And so now the gnolls are in charge there. It's like, okay, it doesn't really matter to you because you didn't know otherwise, maybe, or, you know, you didn't really care. And it's like, sure, maybe you could have capitalized on their war, and now it's harder to capitalize on something. You know, there are sometimes it's like you're in the middle of a big plot. You're in a time sensitive thing. You can't sit there and wait around for a month, because basically the whole thing will go to hell, and you'll just miss out on all your opportunities, and you're an idiot. And then other times it's like, yeah, I mean, there's stuff going on, but you don't know about it. It doesn't really matter too much, or something like that. There's no imminent threats or whatever, and so a month goes by. And I do think it is important to have periods of time like that, and a lot of games nowadays are very much kind of structured around periods of time like that. Downtime, where your characters can kind of relax and do side activities and crafting and learning spells, and, you know, that's kind of assumed to be a part of the campaign at certain points. So, no, I don't think resting should always be penalized in some way. But I would say excessive resting, maybe. So in the meantime here, I've actually started to try to put together some custom classes for Tales of Argosa. Because there are certain, you know, design spaces here that I think could be further explored that aren't in the core rulebook, as always. Core rulebook can't have everything in it. And we only have 9 classes, so there's a lot of wiggle room there, and I find it to be a fun design challenge to make new classes for a game. So I started with Paladin because my brother really likes to play Paladins, and the Cultist in the core rulebook is meant to be something of a Paladin. He doesn't get access to big spell lists like the magic user. But I changed the Cultist. I think I can officially rename the Cultist from my version to a Cleric, because that's pretty much what it is. He uses divine magic, and he doesn't get automatically, like, smite. And I did give him turning. Yeah, I mean, I pretty much made him a Cleric. But that leaves room for a Paladin. You know, a hybrid of a fighter and a cleric. And so I borrowed a bunch of stuff from the Cultist that I didn't put into the Cleric, But then I added some new stuff to make it a little bit closer to kind of the 5th edition paladin. Because, I wanted it to appeal to my brother, because he likes paladins a lot. He likes that, heroic leadership, divine role at the front of the party. That's high charisma and leading the charge and all that. So this is what I've put together at this point, and I showed it to him, and he approved. And the tricky thing when designing a paladin from the ground up here is it can't be overpowered, but you also don't want to make it underpowered. So there needs to be a reason why it's different than a cleric. It differentiates itself from a cleric. And it also needs to be not as good at fighting as a fighter. That's very important. It can't just be a better fighter. There still needs to be reasons to pick a fighter outside of just flavor. So the key attribute for Paladin is Charisma. I could set it at 15, but I think it's generally assumed if you're going for a key attribute, you want it to be at least a 15, but I could set it, whatever. Hit points, I went with your con plus level times 2, which is the same as the cultist, same as my cleric. I reserved the times 3, the highest HP bonus for the fighter. Honestly, I think barbarians should actually be 4. I think barbarians should be the highest health, higher than a fighter, and they just can't use the heaviest armor. I think that should usually be the trade-off. I might house rule that in the future. We'll see. Then the weapons and armor selection, I waffled a little bit before deciding to just give them access to everything. I feel like I don't know where I would restrict it in that, like, a paladin wouldn't use. The only thing I could really think of is maybe no, like, bows. Maybe they can't use bows and they have to use a crossbow. All right, yeah, you know what, I'm gonna go. Yeah, all except bows. So they can use a crossbow, they can use javelins, they can use slings. Just not bows, bow and arrow. I don't know, is it a thematic choice or something? A crossbow is kind of just as cowardly. I guess a crossbow is even more cowardly. So I don't know. It's an odd, just sort of mechanical. But I really don't want to make it just a better fighter. But I have to give them all armor because it just seems appropriate. Skills pretty similar to cleric or cultist, but I very specifically left off deception. I didn't want to have any form of deception because that just doesn't feel like a paladin to have that skill. You can still take it. You can still, at level 2, you can take any skill you want. So if you want to be a deceptive paladin, go ahead. But it didn't feel right as part of their class list. So then I gave them blessings, much like the cultist has. This keys off of charisma, though, instead of will. And some of these I took just straight from cultist. So blessed weapon, except I buffed blessed weapon. The cultist version is just a +1 bonus to attack, and it lasts, I think, for like 1d6 times 10 minutes or something. I decided to make it more powerful, but for shorter duration. 1 minute, and it's a bonus equal to your charisma modifier on attack rolls, and the weapon counts as magical. Holy Smite, that's as is. You can do it once per combat, and it's after you hit. Instead of rolling damage, you just can cause max weapon damage plus your level, which is like a super crit. Sense Abomination, that's as is, to detect undead, demons, and aberrant terrors for 2d6 minutes. Turning, that's as is, which is pretty good. Divine Word, that's as is. And then we got to the new stuff. So there's a bunch of auras that all have a range of 20 feet except for Aura of Light. And then I also throw in Lay on Hands, so that they do get a heal. Lay on Hands just seems always very paladin to me. Heal 1d6 plus your level, or remove 1 condition affecting an ally. Can't do it on yourself. And it increases to 2d6 at level 4, 3d6 at level 8. So the auras. Aura of Protection. 20 feet. Lasts for the remainder of the combat. So I think at higher levels, pretty much every fight, you're going to have Aura of Protection up. Which is a factor. Does that break the game? I don't know. It's possible. You know, at level 8, you're pretty much going to have this active every combat for all of your allies. And you all gain +3 to AC and +3 to luck rolls. Pretty high, I think. I think it's very buffy. But again, you could consider like a level 8 cleric that's going to have access to high-end cleric magic. It's probably going to be also even more ridiculous. So I don't think it's that broken. So the auras affect allies as well as yourself. Aura of Vengeance. This one only lasts a number of rounds equal to your charisma modifier. I didn't want it to have like a bunch of auras that you just cast and they all last for the whole combat. These do take an action to activate, so that is a factor. And I decided not to specify that they don't stack, so I'm allowing them to stack. You can have multiple auras active, but it's one action for every one of these. So it's not like you're really going to want to sit there for 5 rounds in combat. And you know, I don't know. We'll see. These things require playtesting. So Aura of Vengeance. All allies as well as yourself gain 1d6 on damage rolls from melee and ranged weapons, which increases to 2d6 at level 4, 3d6 at level 8. So a level 8 paladin that throws out these auras. You know, you're getting +3 to AC, +3 to luck rolls, and all melee and ranged weapons deal +3d6 damage. It's very buff heavy, and I kind of like that idea, and Lego, my brother, really likes that idea. So I think it's fun. Aura of Sanctuary. Similar charisma modifier amount of rounds. Any evil or chaotic creature within the aura that attempts to take an offensive action against you or your allies must first succeed on a luck will save. If they fail, they lose their action. It's not going to be usable in every fight. Does not last that long, but it has the potential to just kind of sweep, if you're against just sort of like a big mob of like demons, higher end demons. It's very possible for them to just be kind of nullified for a few rounds. Aura of Clarity. This lasts, again, charisma modifier rounds. Everyone becomes immune to being charmed, fear, madness, or other mental attacks or manipulation. It's a bit more situational. You're not going to be popping that every combat or anything. But if you come across opponents that are going to be charming you or fearing or attacking your minds in some way, it's kind of a lifesaver. Aura of Light. This is basically the torch replacement. 1d6 times 10 minutes. 30 feet bright light. And any hostile, evil, or chaotic creatures within the aura take 1 damage at the start of their turns. I needed to specify that it's hostile, because I don't want it to be ever used as just like a makeshift detect evil spell. Where you're just walking around town with your aura of light on, and then you just start to see some guy getting burned. It's like, evil! Kill him! So they have to be hostile, which basically means you have to be in combat. And then lastly, Aura of Liberation. Similar to Clarity, but you become immune to anything that affects your movement, including grappling, restraining, and being slowed. Also ignore any movement penalties from difficult terrain, as well as attack penalties while underwater. Obviously, I looked to 5th edition D&D quite a bit for ideas here. I gave them Sacred Lore, which is from the Cultists, but at level 2 they get Divine Health, making them immune to disease. It's just a classic like D&D Paladin thing that just feels always very situational, but extremely satisfying when it helps you out, A lot of the other stuff is pretty standard just for most of the classes. Martial classes, they get a second attack at 5th level and stuff. At 7th level, though, I gave them Righteous Fury. Cultists get an expanded crit range, so they crit on 19 or 20. I wanted to just differentiate a little bit, so I gave them a bonus 1d6 damage on all melee and ranged weapon attacks. And then lastly was the attack bonus scaling. And this was where, again, I really wanted to... This is the main thing, I would say. One of the main things that differentiates them from fighters. Because fighters get +1 attack bonus at every single level. So at level 9, they have +9 attack bonus. Cultists, kind of... They don't get one every level, and they peter out at +6, I believe. So I didn't want to go to +8, because there's so many other tricks you get that... kind of buff and everything, so I went a little bit lower than scale. I went to +7. I wanted it to be higher than +6. I want it to be higher than the cleric in some fashion, even minorly, but yeah. So that's it. That's my paladin at the moment, subject to change. I'm mostly happy with it. It kind of fits that role, I think, of martial character that has a lot of buff and is primed for a leadership position with a high charisma, you know. I often like to play paladins in video games and stuff, and so I agree with my brother. I just kind of like that role often of being the good guy, being the leader, rallying everyone and buffing them and all that good stuff. For me personally, you know, I like spells so much. And I just like seeing 70 pages of spells, you know. So I tend to lean, if I'm gonna play a divine character, it's probably gonna be the cleric that gets access to gobs of spell options. But no, I think this is a very solid character. If anything, it probably leans towards overpowered, obviously. But I don't know. It's hard to say without playtesting. Other character classes that I want to make, Scion. Obviously, it's my favorite class of all time, and I'm really kind of bouncing around of how I want to do that. I found one that somebody put together for OSE called the Mystic, and I like a lot of what I see in that document, so I might just I might just steal most of that. The old school classic Scion in D&D uses psi points. You know, they have a pool of psychic points that they spend to cast these things to differentiate them from like the Vancian wizard kind of stuff. And I'm pretty sure it was 4E, 4th edition D&D, the Scion. By far my most played character, my favorite character, my 4th edition Scion. And I'm pretty sure it had psi points, I believe. But it also, you know, it had the usual kind of encounter daily stuff. And I believe you could spend points to, like, empower. Okay, yeah. So... yeah, you got augments. So you got a bunch of at-will powers that could be augmented to make them more powerful by spending your psi points. And then you got daily powers, and you didn't get any encounters. So basically your encounters were just your augmented at-wills that you could... So you had at-wills, you know, like cantrips that you could use constantly, but then you had sort of a replenishable pool of psi points that you could spend to kind of turn them into once per encounter powers, you know. Yeah, definitely my favorite class. I loved it. So I want to do something with psi points, and it's just a matter of how do I integrate that with Tales of Argosa and its kind of short rest system. I think possibly what I could do is just, if you short rest and you recover a number of psi points equal to your level or something. That might be the easiest way to balance it. My first thought was like you recover like 1d6 psi points, but I don't really want it to be that random because nothing else in the short rest outside of the will roll is random. You recover a specific number of 8 hit points. That's not random. You recover, an ability use that's not random. You recover a reroll that's not random. So I think maybe just a level amount of psi points, and that allows you to kind of scale it properly with a good curve of you get a certain amount of psi points and you recover a certain amount of psi points. And I just love that idea of empowering things to make them more powerful, like, you know, like dumping all your resources into one mega attack and just like overloading your brain, you know, to fry something. I really like that idea. So I don't want to, there are no cantrips in Tales of Argosa, so I specifically want to avoid introducing that. So everything will require psi points. I just want to be able to empower them by spending more psi points. Kind of like, I don't know if Axe allows you to sort of upcast spells. I didn't really look closely into that, but I would allow that for Tales of Argosa. Like, if we have Thunderclap, you know, and that does 1d6 damage. If I spend a level 2 spell slot, I would say that should be 2d6 damage. If you're gonna, you should be able to do that, because that's fun. It gives you even more flexibility and stuff, and I always love flexibility. So yeah, I gotta do Scion. I also want to do like a sword mage or a battle mage, something like that. Something that combines a mage and a fighter and allows you to kind of channel spells through your sword. Again, much like the paladin, kind of tricky to avoid just making it a better fighter. I think, especially because, I mean, the magic user here is kind of that, because they can use light armor and they can use like one-handed weapons, so they can kind of wade into battle. So they need to be a little bit sturdier than that, but also kind of like a risk-reward thing, and allows them to channel their spells specifically through their sword, to the point where I for my ideal sword mage, they can't cast spells normally. They have to like cast them through their sword, meaning that I don't want a sword mage that could just choose to sit in the back and cast fireball, or, I mean, fireball is a bad example, but something like that. I want them to be up in the front, and they have to channel it through their sword, and they're encouraged to do so. That also means probably that it limits them on like utility stuff. Like, I wouldn't really give them Weave Smoke as an option, because it's mostly going to be offensive stuff. It's going to be stuff that activates when you hit it, when you hit something with your sword, you know, and then something acid erupts out of it or something like that. So I don't know, I gotta ponder that some more. I also wouldn't mind making some form of an assassin, because the rogue doesn't really fit in that niche, and I like assassins. I think they're fun. So I'm thinking like a very heavily poison-based assassin. The rogue gets yeah, not much. They get Rapid Dose as one of their tricks, which allows them to apply a single dose of poison or drink a potion as like part of their action. So they could apply a poison while they're stabbing somebody. But I want to really delve more into like poisons and sudden strikes and you know, specifically assassination. The problem is that rogues get backstab already, which is their biggest thing, and says they're a master of ambush and assassination. So tricky to differentiate the assassin from the rogue. Yeah, I don't know. And there's some others, of course. And I've already tweaked the Ranger so that it doesn't get a Beast Companion. But there may be an argument to just make a dedicated, I mean, God forbid, call it an archer, but like specifically a dedicated ranged user, a dedicated bowman of some kind. Because the Ranger here, honestly, isn't that focused on ranged attacks. He's got multiple things that affect melee attacks and dual wielding and stuff. So having a specific archer class of some kind would probably appeal to people. Like a sniper or something. I don't know. I'll workshop it. But yeah, you know, how much time have I wasted? 25 minutes. Perfect. I just want to talk about that because I assume if you're watching this, you're somewhat interested in Tales of Argosa or kind of the various design philosophies of RPGs. That could be way off, though. All right. Right. So I discovered somebody linked this. This is 5e.tools. And man, D&D 5th edition just gets all the niceties, gets all the attention, all the work done. So I don't think this is a strictly legal site, but it's here. And I mean, I have bought Phandelver and below, so, you know. And so this is all of Phandelver and below, and it's nicely bookmarked and everything. But even more than that, like, you can click on the map and it has this pop-out view that stays on the page. And you can actually click on the sections and it'll pop out the description of everything. So that's great. And you can, like, hover over items and it'll tell you what they are and, like, the source of where they come from in the book and everything and their cost. You can also hover over enemies, and it'll tell you everything you need to know about the enemies. Really pretty handy. You can even do rolls. Yeah, it even has a built-in dice roll, and you just click, and it'll do the dice roll. And tell you conditions. I mean, this is really nice. So anyways, we're in R4, the Tresendar Crypts. We just helped to rescue some captives and got them across the pit, and they fled out of the manor, so they are safe and sound, presumably. So all is well, but we have much to do. We know that we're not done here. So we see this other door here, and we're going to be traversing through it. Yeah, I don't think there's anything special about that door to the north, so we'll just go through it, and we enter into this very narrow corridor, and we see a door on our right. I assume we would kind of see that there's a secret door on our left. Not necessarily, maybe, but I assume so. But yeah, the door on the right. We will kind of listen at the door now, because we can never be sure where these damn bandits are going to be. But it seems quiet. And then we notice that it's locked. Ah, locked. Well, we don't have anyone that's good with locks. So we'd have to break down this door if we want to get in there. And I'm not about to do that when we don't know the location of all the enemies here. We really are trying to maintain stealth until stealth is lost. So I think we're going to hold off on that door. And again, presumably we'll see this secret door. Especially because we know there has to be a secret door somewhere here. Because otherwise, there's no other way to go. And we know that we didn't clear out the rest of the bandits. Because we didn't get to, like, the eye monster or whatever that we were warned about. So, yeah, we're pretty sure there's a secret door somewhere. So I'm sure we find it. Alright. So that means that we will then progress into this area, and I believe we have a torch lit. I think who is carrying the torch? Jabroni. Yeah, he's just got a battle axe in one hand and his torch in the other. Yeah, that's fine. All right, this area is the north end of a large natural cavern, but it has been finished with dressed stone block walls and a flagstone floor. Several barrels are stored against the walls here, along with empty crates, straw for packing, hammers, pry bars, and nails. A pry bar, huh? The cavern continues for some distance to the south. You can make out several passages that open off the larger cavern and what looks like a deep pit or crevice in the floor. Okay. Most of the provisions and goods here aren't terribly valuable. 40 beaver pelts worth 2 gold pieces each are an exception. They were looted from a caravan on the Tribor Trail a few days ago. 40 beaver pelts. Jesus. Okay, well, we could go to Axe to figure out how much that weighs, I suppose. Or how much it's... Well, we know how much it's worth. It's a question of how much it weighs. I don't know if Axe will tell us that specifically, because that's usually incidental. I mean, it's more like in Axe, you would know that you have 60 pounds of beaver pelts. You wouldn't really know or care how many beaver pelts make up 60 pounds of beaver pelts, because it doesn't really matter. So telling us that there's 40 here doesn't quite answer. I'd have to know the weight of one beaver pelt. I can't imagine it's that heavy, but it is bulky. I guess maybe it's kind of heavy. Weight of a beaver pelt. Oh, God. Dried beaver pelt typically weighs between 1.5 to 1.75 pounds. Although this site says around, so around 1.5 pounds. Okay. So, that would be 60 pounds. Wow. As I said, 60 pounds of beaver pelts, which is 6 stone, which is quite a lot. I mean, that's at least 6 slots worth of beaver pelts. So we're not carrying beaver pelts out, nor would we really want to. I mean, that's... If we got all of them out, the max value there would be 80 gold, which is not bad. And given time, after we clear out the whole lair, we will do that. Even though technically we're stealing it from people that stole it. It's not really honorable, but how are we ever going to track down the owner of 40 beaver pelts? But I could take... a pry bar. I could take a crowbar, and we could somewhat more quietly pop open this other door. Like if we close this secret door and try to be quiet about popping this door open, it shouldn't be that loud, I would imagine. So let's do that. We'll give it to Jabroni to carry because he likes to carry stuff. He enjoys it. Enjoys it. Crowbar. All right, and then we will use that to pop open the door. I won't require a check for that because I'm not insane. So we pop open this door, and we see racks of weapons lining the walls of this chamber, including spears, swords, crossbows, and bolts. A dozen dirty red cloaks hang from hooks by the door. 12 spears, 6 short swords, 4 long swords, 6 light crossbows, 8 quivers holding 20 crossbow bolts each. 3 of the weapons are especially well made. A short sword whose pommel and guard are set with semi-precious stones, and 2 matched crossbows whose woodwork is inlaid with silver. If sold, these weapons fetch twice their normal value. Okay. Okay, hold on. Twice their normal value. Let's keep that in mind here. Let me get my book. So we've got a short sword. Short sword normally sells for 6 gold. So that would be a 12 gold short sword. But the crossbows, that's pretty good, because those sell for 35 gold. So those are the big boys. What's the D&D value? 25 gold. Yeah, so these are very valuable things. 70 gold each. I think that's an XP right there. Now, it doesn't mention that in the read out loud text for the room. So I think you would only notify players of that if they actually investigate the weapons and they're like, okay, we're going to look through the weapons. What's all here? Then you would tell them. If they're just like, okay, we leave, then, you know, they're going to miss out. So yeah, it usually pays to investigate piles of goods, even if they look kind of mundane. Okay, so we definitely want to bring those out because that's worth an XP. Pairing it is a little tricky. I guess we'll give them both to Bertrice. I suppose I will make this an item. I love making new items. Fancy crossbow. Worth 70 gold. And we'll just give her 2 of those. Alright, I'll give everyone an XP for that. Nice. Nice haul. Okay. Good. So the cave. The cave is to our south. We pretty much have to go in, except we have been warned there's an eye monster, so we are on edge. We have our weapons at the ready. We've got our crossbow out. He's got his great axe ready. If we see something, we're striking. A cold breeze softly sighs in this large natural cavern, carrying the faint scent of decaying flesh. A crevice with sloped walls divides the cavern and is flanked by 2 rough stone columns that support the 20-foot-high ceiling. 2 arched wooden bridges span the chasm. A subterranean monster that hungers for flesh, a Nothic named Sarnak, guards this cave. Lured by a faint magical effect emanating from the crevice, the creature was occupying the area when Glassstaff moved in. Glassstaff struck a bargain with the monster, convincing it to help guard the stronghold in exchange for treasure and the occasional gift of fresh meat. Sarnak is untrustworthy but loyal enough for the moment. Sarnak usually lurks near the west ends of the 2 bridges. If it notices intruders entering the cave, it hides behind one of the large stone columns and watches them, attempting to use its weird insight to discern the intruder's secrets. Sarnak communicates via telepathy. If detected, it prefers to negotiate and will betray the Red Brands for the right incentives, such as the promise of food. The Nothic knows everything the Red Brands know. Okay, the southern bridge is rigged to collapse. There are 2 dead goblins, psionic goblins, underneath the southern bridge. And there is a battered wooden chest hidden in a cubbyhole at the bottom of the crevice under the northern bridge. Obvious to anyone who descends into the fissure. Contains 160 silver, 120 gold, 5 malachite gems or 12 gold each. Potion of healing, potion of climbing, a potion of growth. Chest also holds a +1 longsword. Well, that is quite the haul. That would be worth a good number of XP if you find it. We're going to have to leave that up to something. Okay, so how do we play this? When I ran this from my family, you know, I had it kind of whisper into their head with telepathy as they entered. And I don't know if Lost Mine of Phandelver wrote it to where he was a bit more insane and just kind of like laughed or giggled or something. I don't remember, but it seems weird that I would just come up with that as a trait. I could have sworn it mentioned that, but maybe they changed that. Okay, so first thing is a good question, is conversion. Because this is kind of an original monster. This is, I don't know if it's unique. Well, no, it's not unique to this module. It's in the monster manual. but it's something that doesn't have like a easy direct representative in Tales of Argosa or OSE or something. So, conversion. According to, well, okay, the back of the Tales of Argosa book does have conversion guide, or tips, I suppose, and obviously mentions 5th edition D&D. 5e monsters tend to have larger HP pools than Tales of Argosa uses. Substitute hit dice based on a similar Argosa monster and apply AC and damage expressions using the custom monster table. Add a natural 19 effect. The default is a trauma roll, but special monster abilities also make good candidates. Strength, dex, etc. scores will generally carry across okay. If legendary actions apply, use boss or heavy templates. Okay. So its stats we can pretty much keep as is, even though I think that's relatively high. It's a CR2 monster. And according to this, it has 45 HP, 6d8 plus 18, which would put it, you know, ignoring the massive bonus, it would make it a 6 hit dice creature. So we'd want to find something that's around 6 hit dice. But we could even go up to 7. Like a troll is a 7 hit dice creature. That seems a little hefty for a 7 for a level 2 character, 2 level 2 characters. But again, we're not trying to balance. So I think a troll is somewhat reasonable and somewhat similar. So we could go for that. But if I wanted to find hit dice 6, I think they show, yeah. So a hag, a rock grinder, a serpent man. Here we go. One of the serpent men. Surlock. 8-foot tall hybrids, half humanoid, half serpent. So this is hit dice 6 plus 3, 16 AC, and they deal 2d6 damage plus poison, where you have to make a luck con save or paralyzed for 1d3 hours. And their stats, they got 18 strength, 16 dex, 14 constitution, 13 wisdom. Yeah, pretty good stats. Luck of 8. I think this is a reasonable option to take. It's tough. Although, granted, in comparison, 5th edition D&D characters, you'd be level 2 at this point, by design. Is 45 HP that much to chew through? It would get 2 claw attacks on its turn, dealing an average of 8 damage. So if they both hit, you know, you're taking 16 damage per turn. At level 2, that's quite a bit. So yeah, I suppose this thing could shred you pretty good. So, not a lightweight. So alright, we'll take the Surlock stats. And then for attacks, obviously we're going to ditch the poison that paralyzes you. And it's a question of, do we want to take the 2 claw attacks, or would I rather just have 1 attack? The recommendation for custom monsters of hit dice 6 puts their damage at 2d8. So, honestly, yeah, I guess I would keep the 2 claw attacks and have it do 1d8 damage each. Which is less than this, but they would also get +6 to their attack roll instead of +5, and it's harder in Tales of Argosa to have kind of a crazy AC at this point. So I think that's fair. 1d8, two attacks. Then also they have Rotting Gaze, which allows them to look at one person within 120 feet. They have to make a con saving throw, DC 13. If they fail, they take 5d6 necrotic damage. If they succeed, they take half that. So Tales of Argosa monsters don't tend to have special abilities. They might have like a rider, like poison, but they don't really have like a special ability most of the time where they can, instead of attacking, they can do this cool thing. But that's why it recommends to make any special ability they might have into a natural 19 effect. So if he attacks at any point, he gets a natural 19 roll. He could do Rotting Gaze. I don't know. I feel like we'd want to dummy that damage down a little bit. And I don't know if I'd have any damage on a successful save. But maybe that's just me. I'd also probably have it. I don't know. Usually natural 19 effects are always on the target you hit. Such as trauma, you know. So I think it has to be on the person that he's hitting. So I guess, yeah, I don't want to design a monster that's just like guaranteed to one-shot something. That's not really super fun. So we'll dummy the damage down a bit. We'll have a luck con throw. And if you fail, you take... Yeah, fuck it. 46, I guess. Although looking at the Surloc's natural 19, it's 1d8 damage and knocked prone. That's not that significant. That's kind of minor. So maybe that's way too much damage, and I should just change it to 2d6 damage. Alright, fine. We'll make it 2d6 damage. It's not a super excessive amount of damage. 3d6. Fuck it. 3d6. Okay. And then its last thing is that it has weird insight. I wouldn't make this an ability. In fact, I would weave this more into the narrative, and I'd probably have one person just roll, not a luck save, but just a will save. And if they fail... I don't think they'd really notice almost anything. And if they succeed, I'd say that they can tell that something is probing their mind and trying to, like, wiggle in and find something. And then if they fail the roll, then I would say the Nothic magically learns one fact or secret about the target. Whatever that exactly would be, I assume that it's something that it can use against them as part of, like, conversation rather than something that would help it in a fight of some kind. I don't know. I'd be curious to find out. I mean, obviously this module's been run thousands of times, so I'd be curious to see or hear about what other people have done with that. Yeah, obviously it helps immensely if you have players that have things as part of their backstory. Which the OSR community, the OSR genre and everything kind of discourages having backstories for your characters, especially this early on and stuff. and really, like, you're playing the backstory to the character right now. This is their backstory. They don't have anything before, you know. But I don't know. I think there's merits to kind of both approaches. I think it's a little weird to me to just play this faceless generic character that has nothing, you know, entirely blank past, nothing interesting ever happened to them, and they just started adventuring one day. So I think I would change it so that I'd probably be a bit more upfront about it. Be like, okay, I mean, it ruins a little bit of the flavor. But, I mean, yeah, I'd say, okay, this thing dove into your mind, digging around. What did it find? You know, I would just kind of ask the player at that point. What did it find? What secrets might you have, or something like that? Assuming your player isn't just like, I have no secrets, I know nothing, I've done nothing. Great, thank you for playing. So that would be my Nothic, I suppose. Yeah, that would be my Nothic. I'd write that up somewhere, but whatever, we'll figure it out. Okay, so we enter into the room, and this thing wants to probe into our minds, and Grognan is up front, and he looks big and dumb, so obviously this thing's going to try to probe his mind, so we'll have Grognan roll his will save just straight up, or his will roll. He failed, so he doesn't really notice anything. And the DM would ask me, like, hey, something dug into your mind? You know, out of character, I suppose. Again, like, you kind of have to spoil something there. What did he find? The problem is, I don't know. I don't know anything about Grognan, and yeah, he was a galley slave. He was enslaved. That's something that is in his mind, in his backstory, I suppose. Is it a secret? Not especially. I mean, he doesn't really tell people, but that's because he's not really a chatty person. I'm sure Bertrice knows about it. Maybe Jabroni doesn't know about it. Is that a secret if you just don't tell somebody and it just... I don't know. If I don't tell you what I had for dinner tonight, that's not a secret. It just didn't come up. I don't know. Obviously not much of a factor, but yeah, needless to say, we don't notice anything yet. And he's gonna hide, because he doesn't really want to fight. He is untrustworthy. And prefers to negotiate and is willing to betray the Red Brands for the right incentive. So, needless to say, at this moment, nobody senses anything. And so we can see this place is lit up. They actually have torches all over this place because they actually move through here all the time. So we know that this is a thoroughfare for them. So we can kind of see this whole room. You know, we can see the southern bridge. We can see this passageway leading to the east. We can see a darkened passageway going south. We see this other passage to our west, and then another one southwest over there. So we have options. I think, honestly, we would go across this bridge here and go down this passageway in lieu of other options. So I don't think we'll encounter it. I could roll a perception, though, against his stealth. So let's have the Nothic roll stealth. He has a plus... Well, no, he has a 16 dex, so we're just rolling that. Alright, so you got a margin of 10. This could be a group check, I suppose, but honestly... I don't know. I guess I could have everyone roll individually. And if anyone succeeds, they spot it. Is that fair? I don't know. Because I wouldn't ever really do it the opposite way. Like, if you have 10 kobolds, I roll a group check. Or, no, group check, I roll a representative check, so I roll once. So I guess I could have them roll a representative check. I could say one of you roll perception, whoever has the highest, which is gonna be Bertrice. So she's rolling 13 plus her 1 from having detection, and she failed, so she doesn't notice anything, and it's okay. We're gonna move on. And the reason why the reason why a DM would not even tell them to roll perception and instead just like it, I honestly probably a lot easier on a VTT where you can just look at everyone's stats and I can just sit here and roll a GM roll, private GM roll against, you know, rolling her perception for her, and then it's like, okay, she failed, so I won't say anything. That's ideal. I mean, that's perfect. If the players just have no idea and they're looking around, you know, it's assumed they're looking around, but they just don't quite see it and they have no idea that they missed something. Because it depends on the group, but it is very easy then for players to be like, well, wait a minute. We failed. There's something here. You know. So if you have a group that is prone to meta bullshit like that, I mean, for one, sternly yell at them that that's unacceptable. But otherwise, secret rolls are an option. Alright, so we're going to continue down this way. And Jabroni's in the middle. And so we come across 2 doors. One on our left, one on our right. And we... I assume we see lights on under both doors. So we have R10 and 11. So the common room is to our left. Character who listens at the door and succeeds on a DC 10 perception check. Here is the villains playing a game of knucklebones. Rattling sounds are followed by shouts and groans. Okay, if they're shouting on the other side of a wooden door, I don't have to listen and roll to hear it, okay? We can fucking hear it. So we hear what really definitely clearly sounds like a group playing some sort of dice game. There's no ambiguity there. It's pretty clear. To our right, the north, this one's a little trickier because it's faint bubbling and dripping sounds. Also, there was a secret door, actually, in the R7 storeroom and work area. I didn't even see it because the blue line there kind of covered it. So we'll just pretend we missed that secret door. So faint bubbling and dripping sounds. Yeah, we wouldn't hear that just automatically, especially with the shouting going on and stuff. So we'd have to actively listen at the door, at the other door. And I suppose I will. So we'll roll a detection. Success. Okay, so she does hear faint bubbling sounds like liquid dripping. She would surmise it's some sort of laboratory or workshop. And we are supposedly looking for a wizard, so that might be where we want to get to. I guess we'll very gently try the doorknob, the handle, whatever it is. See if it's locked, and it isn't. So then, we'll have our weapons ready in case there's a wizard on the other side of this door that we have to charge at. And we'll kind of just go 3, 2, 1, and then not burst through the door or anything, but swiftly move through the door as relatively quietly as we can. I wouldn't imagine that we would make a big ruckus. And this room appears to be... Oh, hold on. Wah-bah, wah-bah, wah-bah. This room appears to be a wizard's workshop. A large work table is set up with alembics, retorts, distillation coils, and other alchemical devices, all of them stewing and bubbling away. Bookshelves are crowded with sheaves of parchment and strange-looking tomes. Though Glassstaff is in his quarters, he hasn't left his experiments untended. His evil familiar, a quasit named Zion, lurks here and watches over its master's work. Xeon is invisible when the party enters and doesn't attack immediately. Rather, it watches the party closely and waits until the characters are embroiled in a battle before attacking. After it attacks, Xeon turns invisible again and skulks about, looking for a chance to inflict harm upon a weakened character. The Quasit doesn't want to find itself the target of multiple enemies. If Xeon follows the party to other locations within the hideout, assume that it can do so without being detected as long as it remains invisible. Okay. So, I don't think I'd even allow a roll of any kind. Yeah, I don't think so. It would have to be... No, I can't imagine. And I don't know why players would suspect there's something invisible watching them or something. Just seems all pretty unlikely. So unless they do something to the room, like detect magic or detect life, or maybe if they fill the room with like smoke or something to make an outline. And I don't know why they would really do any of that stuff and really suspect anything. So this thing's kind of meant to just be invisible. I don't even know if detect magic would spot it. Oh, it is a demon. Okay. Well, so any detect evil would definitely point it out. We don't have any of that. But theoretically, if you had some sort of detect evil aura, or if you were playing the paladin, or and you had they have whatever it was called, whatever I called it, sense abomination. Yes, that would absolutely point it out to you, and I would tell you like immediately. I would tell you before you even open the door. Really, that there's a demon on the other side of the door. It seems small. All right, yeah, but so we wouldn't have any reason to suspect there's anything in here. So we would see that there's another door here, and we also see a light on in there. So we probably suspect that the wizard is in there if he's going to be anywhere. And we do want to poke around in here because there could be spell books or scrolls, potions. You know, there's all these alchemical ingredients. So we might be able to actually utilize some of that to make our own stuff. Which, again, you can tell 5th edition just not really geared towards any of that. It says most of the materials in this room have no value, but 3 bottles hold rare reagents: mercury, dragon bile, and powdered nightshade, worth 25 gold pieces each to an apothecary or alchemist. Doesn't even say like what you could maybe use them for or make with them. It's just, no, treasure, sell it, move on. But no, there's potentially a lot of stuff of value here to someone trying to brew potions. And it says that it's all set up to brew a potion of invisibility, but the process has been unsuccessful so far. So, yes. Now, this is an important line. Xeon and Glassstaff share a telepathic bond, so Glassstaff knows the characters are coming and has time to prepare for them. So we don't know it, but he is ready for us. And so he knows that there are 3 armed individuals that have just busted into his laboratory and are eyeing up his door to his quarters. If the Quasit warns Glassstaff that trouble is approaching, he grabs the scrolls from his chest and flees via a secret door in the northeast corner of the room. In his haste, he leaves behind a letter from the spider and neglects to properly close the secret door. Characters gain advantage on ability checks made to find the slightly ajar secret door. It's like, come on, dude. Just fucking point out the secret door at that point. God damn. If he manages to escape, he flees to area R1 via R7 and R8 and grabs the satchel hidden in the cistern if it's still there. If the Nothic is still alive in area R8, Glassstaff instructs it to waylay any pursuers. If the characters catch up to Glassstaff and he has the satchel, he quaffs the potion of invisibility and flees the hideout. Right. So, it's a question, I guess, of how long would we wait looking around before we see this other door. It wouldn't be a significant amount of time. I would say that. I think most groups would just be like, okay, we're gonna. No, I could see some groups poking around and playing it kind of slow because they don't think there's any real rush. So it's not really fair for me to be advantageous to myself. So I guess we'll do a luck roll of if we poke around a little bit or if we go straight to the next door. So, standard solo dark luck roll. Do I go straight to the door? No. All right. That's it then. So I poke around, kind of looking over the potions and stuff and seeing if there's anything of obvious value. And she has apothecary, so she can see that a lot of this has some value. She sees some rare reagents that would actually be worth quite a bit. And she sees that it's set up to make a potion of invisibility. Not to say that she could make it herself. She probably never has, but she understands the process theoretically. So that would be pretty useful. And I would give an XP if you make that potion. Fuck, I'd probably give 2 XP, really. But if you just take the rare reagents, I'd give an XP. So we'll kind of check that all, but we're like, hey, we probably should go through this door. You never know. And so we'll do the same kind of 3, 2, 1, and we'll burst through. And we find the room empty. And we see the secret door slightly ajar. So it's like, fuck. He must have heard us coming. He must have heard us rummaging around or something. I can't imagine we would now try to chase after him, and it wouldn't result in anything except getting into a fight with the Nothic right now. So he is gone. I like that it doesn't even talk about what do you do with Glassstaff if he gets away. It never mentions that at all. It just says he flees. Wild. So I have to just come up with... I'm sure someone online has run into this issue. How should I reintroduce him into the game? Actually, first, I think he should tell his men, and then the Red Brand should come down to the party as they leave the manor since it's their base. He's not very powerful, so I wouldn't wait too long to reintroduce him. I had him surprise the party on the road in a random encounter. I played it like Glassstaff was more afraid of the Black Spider than the party, so he set an ambush on the road, but you can always beef him up and put him somewhere. I used him in the final confrontation with Black Spider. It was a pretty epic fight with the party having to deal with 2 enemy casters. While they were at Cragmaw Castle, I had him coordinate an attack on Phandelver. Red Brands and Hobgoblins working for Black Spider set fire to part of the town, attack locals, all that. This was cover for him to slip back into the manor and pick up some of his things he had to leave behind in his escape. Party figured out what was going on and went into the manor again, found him, but he barely escaped again. At that point, he became a recurring villain. I read somewhere that somebody made him ambush the players at Thunder Tree, with him claiming he had to kill them or the spider will get him. That's what I'll be doing. What would I do? This didn't happen when I DM'd it. They went through the secret doorway on the other side of the room, actually. And so they ambushed him and killed him. So we didn't really have to worry about any of that. So what would I have done if it had been the other way and he would have fled and they waited too long or they couldn't catch up to him or what have you? How would I have reintroduced him? Yeah, I probably would have done the ambush thing if I don't know. It's very easy probably to just write him out of the thing entirely, you know? He's just like, fuck this. They got too close, man. I'm out of here. But that's more just like, I don't know and I don't care and he's gone. That's my laziness as a DM. It's not really good. I don't recommend that. So an ambush is the easiest way, probably. I don't think he'd really have any red brands working with him, assuming the party continues to scope out the rest of the hideout. Like, we're probably going to wipe out most of the red brands, and they're going to scatter. He's not going to really convince anyone to go after these assholes. But I like he works with the Goblin King and gets some bugbears or something to join him and lays an ambush. I think that's pretty solid. Using him as part of like the big final battle with the black spider, which in this module now is definitely not the final battle. I could see that. But I agree that he's probably scared of the spider. I don't know if he'd want to go back to him. I mean, his letter here from the spider says, "Don't disappoint me." You know, he's probably a little concerned. So I think he would try to do the ambush. It's probably the most likely. So we'll do that, and we can set another ambush for our party. So all right. So he gets away. We don't chase him. Blah blah blah. And we scope out his room, and he grabs these scrolls from his chest, which is really annoying because that was the whole reason we did this, was to get a hold of his scrolls. So we see various papers and notes stacked neatly on the desk, mostly consisting of Glassstaff's written orders to apothecaries and alchemists in nearby settlements for more materials for his workshop. However, the characters also find a letter rolled up and sealed with a wax symbol in the shape of a spider, which reads, "Lord Albrecht, my spies in Neverwinter tell me that strangers are due to arrive in Phandelver. They could be working for the dwarves. Capture them if you can, kill them if you must, but don't allow them to upset our plans. See that any dwarven maps in their possession are delivered to me with haste. I'm counting on you, Yarno. Don't disappoint me." This letter confused my entire family endlessly. I think even after we went over like 15 minutes of me re-explaining everything to them, they still didn't really get it. I think they just kind of said that they got it just so we'd move on. For whatever reason, they just could not comprehend who this letter was from, who the spider was, who Yarno or Lord Albrecht was, who Glassstaff was. They just couldn't comprehend that Glassstaff is the same person as Lord Albrecht, who is the same person as Yarno, and they couldn't understand that Glassstaff is a different person than the spider. They were convinced for multiple minutes that Glassstaff was the spider. And I explained multiple times, very clearly, and it still didn't seem like that sunk in at all. It was absolutely infuriating. I think, yeah, one of the issues I've noticed time and time again when DMing for them is that they don't ever really seem to think. Sometimes they'll just kind of react, you know, and they'll just kind of react on some sort of twisted instinct. When it comes to, like, multiple different things, like, obviously, like, in-game, like, planning or, you know, actions that they take or something, but also just, like, rules and stuff, they'll just sometimes, like, roll a die. And they won't think about what they're rolling or why they're rolling or something, and no one, like, told them to, like, it's just, I don't know, endlessly infuriating. And that's why I moved away from Shadow of the Weird Wizard, because it was just too much. Too many rules and like, we need simple. Shadow Dark was a little too brutal, too much for that for them. Tales of Argosa so far has been successful. All right. But thankfully we can think. So we can tell then that Glassstaff apparently was Yarno Albrecht, the guy that Sildar is looking for, who apparently was a member of the Lord's Alliance, sent here to kind of establish, try to bring Phandalin in sort of the fold of this network of support or whatever, this alliance. But it seems that he went another route and tried to get personal gain out of it, and he took over the local banditry, calling himself Glassstaff. That seems to be what has occurred. What's more, not only that was he just leading a group of bandits that were being assholes, what's more is he also is in line with the Spider. I think we knew that already, because we captured that one red brand. So he told us that Glassstaff was working with the Spider. So we already knew that, but now we know that he's Yarno Albrecht. That doesn't really change much, but we know that we were actually sort of foreseen. The Spider has spies in Neverwinter that already knew about us, so this Spider figure is very well informed and has fingers everywhere. It says they could be working for the dwarves. So he knew that we existed and we were coming to Phandalin. He didn't know that we were working for the dwarves, which you'd think he would know, but okay. And the Spider has plans, obviously, and also any dwarven maps in their possession are to be delivered to the Spider with haste. So we can surmise that obviously the Spider is heavily interested in this cave that the Rockseeker brothers found. But if they already got the map, I mean, they already had the map before we arrived anywhere, before we left Neverwinter, pretty much. They already had the map. So chances are they've already moved on the cave. So what we need to find is the fucking cave. At the foot of the bed is a sturdy, unlocked wooden chest holding the best pickings of the Red Brand's loot over the last few months. Contains 180 silver, 130 gold, and a silk pouch with 5 carnelians worth 10 gold piece each, and 2 paradots worth 15 gold pieces each. It does not have the 2 scrolls, which is really a fucking bummer, because that would have been Hold Person and Fireball. 2 insanely good spells to add to my spellbook. So I'm fairly upset about that. But alright, this is a relatively big haul for us of just monetary value. So this is going to be worth 2 gold, 2 XP. I could throw another XP for finding that letter, but ultimately it doesn't tell us a drastic amount. I think if the players deliver that letter to Sildar, I think that would be worth an XP for kind of resolving that, for his, helping out an ally in that sense. So for now, we're just going to grab 2 XP for everybody for this money haul. And we have loot. Since that all fits in 1 silk pouch, I'm going to count that as 1 slot. So this is going to be silk pouch of gems. And we'll just copy that. And put that in pack gear. Okay. And then the money. This is quite a lot of money, unfortunately. It's very annoying. 180 silver, 130 gold. Who can afford to carry this? Technically, Jabroni can carry... He can carry 199 coins without penalty. So I guess I'll have him carry 180 silver and 19 gold. We'll game the system a little bit. So that still leaves 111 gold. Which is a lot. And I am going to have to take up a slot. Bertrice has none. But Grognan has a couple slots. So I suppose he'll do it. So 111 gold. That bumps us up to 140. Okay, and then I'll take a dummy coin. Done. All right. It's a decent haul, though. I mean, yeah, we're obviously upset. It's clear that Glassstaff fled. And we don't know to where. But we know that there's still bandits left. There's still red brands left. So... and it's a good question what to do with the Quasit. Does he follow his master, or does he stay here to harass us? It's really annoying because it doesn't even talk about the telepathic bond. It just says that they have a telepathic bond. I assume that's part of it being having a familiar. Let me just look real quick. Within 100 feet. Okay. Yeah, he would go with. There's no way he would just completely abandon the familiar, and the familiar would just sit here. The familiar goes where the wizard goes. It is a damn handy familiar, though, I'll say that. Yeah, I mean, nothing ever happens, though, if you are just miles and miles apart. There are just a couple stipulations if it's within 100 feet. One, you can communicate telepathically, and two, you can cast spells with a range of touch through your familiar. But, yeah, there isn't much reason why the familiar would stay behind. I don't think. So we'll allow that to flee. This is why it would be a good idea to tell me if what happens to the familiar if he flees. But it does not. But I would just imagine the familiar goes with the wizard. See, look. Familiar with the wizard. That's how it works. Right. So we can ignore that for now. We have this door then. And they're still playing, so obviously they're oblivious. The guy must not have doubled back to, like, warn them or something that we're here. So he must have just fled for his life, the coward. So the smart option is to just burst down the door and start cleaving. That is certainly the smartest thing. We catch him by surprise. We win the day. All is well. Um, obviously, I can see the map, and I could see a benefit to having someone go around to the other side for a pincer attack to stop him from fleeing or something. But our characters wouldn't know about that other door. And it would be kind of foolhardy to just send someone to go check if there's an alternate, you know, another exit or something. So this really wouldn't happen, I wouldn't think, most of the time. So yeah, I think we're just going to burst in and give them surprise. Now, OSE, you know, old school D&D and all that, that wouldn't guarantee surprise. That would just be like you have a 2 in 6 chance of them being surprised. I think that's lame. I think that's dumb. I think if you have a good setup to surprise an enemy, then you surprise them. And these guys are very distracted. They're shouting, they're gambling, they're having a good time. They're completely oblivious to any thing that's happening. Now, I will note, and this is something that I've neglected mostly out of laziness, but honestly, this place should have a random encounter table, because there should be a chance of red brands or something just kind of wandering around. I don't know if it really even needs a random encounter table, but there probably should be a random encounter check. Like every 10 minutes or so, if you roll a 1, there should just be red brands kind of walking around, you know, and like going over to check on something, or going in, or, you know, coming in or leaving the place or something, and they find dead bodies and they're like, holy shit. That should be a factor. Like, you know, as time passes, that should be more and more likely. So I have neglected that. I didn't do that when I DM'd, and I imagine most people don't do any of that when they DM this. But it's just, this is an OSR game. We're technically in a dungeon. It's just kind of appropriate. Probably even better is really to do the underclock and just continually kind of tick down a number and be like, there's a good chance, you know, something's going to be detected. You know, there should be time sensitive while we're down here and we left bodies out. If we didn't leave bodies out, like if we took time to actually hide them to continue our stealthy operations, then that should be a factor, I would say. Because some could then enter and leave and not notice that there's been intruders. But we would have had to have made conscious efforts to kind of cover our tracks. I'm glad I mentioned all this in hindsight as we burst down one of the last doors, because it doesn't matter now. Alright, so Tales of Argosa, surprise. An attacker who gets the drop on an unaware opponent gains a bonus round. Further, the ambusher's first attack is made at advantage, or physical area effect imposes disadvantage on any luck save. Yeah, I mean, it's pretty simple and pretty clear cut, and this applies to enemy ambushing you or players. Here, initiative, surprise. The GM determines if one side or the other is entitled to a free round as a result of surprise, such as an ambush. What is this if not an ambush? So what we're going to do then, and I specifically am noting, actually, that it said we get advantage on our first attack, or physical area effect imposes disadvantage on any luck save. So I think what we should do then, for max potential, is Grognan kicks open the door, and Bertrice immediately throws out Thunderclap. Because stealth is kind of done now at this point. So kick open the door, Thunderclap, they'll all get disadvantage on their luck strength save, and hopefully they just kind of melt. That will be our surprise round, because specifically Grognan is not going to run in. Bertrice is going to cast the spell. So his action is kicking open the door, and then she casts the spell, and then we'll roll initiative normally. Because really, I wouldn't give probably a whole round to all three of my characters. I don't think there's enough time for that amount of surprise. I could potentially say, like, hey, Grognon's going to charge through the door and cleave. And okay, that's surprise. And then I could say, at the same time, Bertrice is going to cast Thunderclap in the center of the room. And I would give that surprise. But that would affect Grognon in the middle of the room. It wouldn't be the end of the world. But I'm confident. I'm confident. So Jabroni, he's put his torch away. He doesn't need that. So he's got his axe and his shield out. We'll re-equip his shield. And Bertrice does have her crossbow kind of ready, but she's going to cast Thunderclap, and Grognon's just going to kick open the door. So that's it. That's what happens. Boom. Let us read. Several worn tables and chairs are scattered around this large room. Wooden benches are drawn against walls decorated with brown and red draperies, and several ale kegs are popped up and tapped. 4 tough-looking human warriors wearing scarlet cloaks are gathered around one of the tables. A stack of coins and trinkets is heaped upon the tabletop between them. So 2 red brand ruffians and 2 human bandits. Okay. It says they're all intoxicated. That's a fucking factor, and you're not going to tell me otherwise. I guess I would give them dazed. I'd give them all dazed, which means that their next action occurs last in the initiative order, and until their next action, they do not make a free attack when an opponent fumbles or withdraws. So basically, I'd be pretty clear about it. Like, basically, they always lose initiative. We don't even have to roll, really. And they don't get any free attacks on critical fails or withdrawing. Is that overpowered? Like, is that too much of an advantage? I don't know. I mean, this doesn't even talk about any downsides to them being intoxicated or anything, but I feel like it should be a factor. That's going to affect your combat ability. So, yeah, we'll roll with that. They're dazed. Yeah, okay. So, we have 2 red brand ruffians, 2 bandits. The bandits have 11 HP here. 2d8. But we're counting them as just normal 1d8 bandits. The ruffians have 3d8 hit points. And also plus 1 more to hit. Ever so slightly more damage. Yeah, we don't really differentiate this much. That's sort of minor bonuses. So honestly, just put 4 red brands in there and you can call it a day. So they're around this table. So this is where they're at. And so that's the situation. Bertrice is going to cast Thunderclap. So we're going to use Spellcraft Tier 1. And we're going to roll an Arcane Lore. +1. Success. Good. So they all have to make a Luck Strength save with disadvantage because of the surprise. So it is a question of their luck stat, which I'm pretty sure was like 4 last time we checked this. I don't know why it would be higher. Yep, 4 and strength of 12, so 4. So they have to roll twice each, and both of them have to be 4 or under. First guy, nope. Second one, nope. Third one, nope. Fourth one, nope. So they all take the full effect. They're deafened and drunk now. That is a rough combo. I feel like they should be vomiting, to be honest. And they all take 4 damage, which is kills on all of them. So we literally just caused their eardrums to explode and they drop dead, all 4. Done. Yeah, magic's pretty good. But as we've seen, cleaving is pretty good. And that was sort of a surprise round. And I had a 50-50 shot on the damage of killing them all. So, you know, and the fact that they were all clustered together. But downside is that was not a significant combat. I don't know exactly what the recommendation is for what makes a significant combat, but I would say primarily if not one of your party members took damage, let alone got attacked, it's not significant combat. You can't even call it a combat. That was a massacre. So, yeah, I would say at the very, very, very minimum, at least one of your characters in the party has to be attacked by something for it to be significant. I don't know if I want to specify that they have to take damage for it to be significant, because they could get very lucky and they just dodge a number of attacks, and I'd still call that significant. But yeah, they have to at least be attacked, and it can't be over after one roll of the die. So we didn't get any XP for doing it that easily, and it did make a big ruckus. So we now have to look at the last room. There is the Nothic in the big cavern. He's not going to seek us out. He was told to waylay us, but he's also untrustworthy. So if he hears like this big thundering boom, and we're like obviously killing stuff, and he hears like their brains exploding or something, like, he's not necessarily going to attack us. So we'll see. But there's the last room we haven't been in, R9. Well, I guess, was there any treasure here? Yes. The table. The table has all their money that they've been gambling over. $75 copper, 55 silver, 22 electrum, and 15 gold, as well as a gold earring set with a tiny ruby worth 30 gold. Again, we come to the issue of carrying capacity. I'd probably say that... did I really not write a value here? No, I did. Okay. The gold earring is probably worth grabbing. But I think that's so minor, that's not going to take up a slot. So we'll put it with the garnets here. Plus 30 gold. It's not quite worth an XP. If we were to take all this money, I'd probably say that's... Let's see. 22 electrum is like 110 silver, which is 11 gold, plus 5 gold. So that's a 31 gold. Together with the earring, I might squeak that over to 1 XP. Probably, yeah, 1 XP. But that's if we took all that. And that's a bunch of coins. Especially because I don't want to use electrum, so I'd convert it. I might be nice and just convert it to fucking 11 gold. So 55 silver, 26 gold. Yeah, maybe Grognan could take that. 150. So he's at 290. So he could take like 110 more coins before he'd take another slot. So yeah, he'll take it. So 26 more gold. And 55 more silver. To 126. And for that, we will all get an XP. It's all about that XP, baby. Okay. Right. Good. Last room. R9. Guard barrack. It's 4 bugbears and 1 goblin. And the goblin is like their little fuck doll or something. I don't know. They just pick on him and treat him like shit, and he just faints at the sight of the party. So they were sent here by the spider to assist Glassstaff. They're the only ones here who know the location of Wave Echo Cave. They won't willingly divulge this information, though, since they fear the spider more than they fear the characters, though a charm person spell might coax the information from one of them. Bugbears also know the location of Cragmaw Castle, but again, they won't share this information willingly. Bugbears avoid the human members of the Red Brands. If characters are wearing scarlet cloaks, bugbears assume they serve Glassstaff. Clever characters might even persuade the bugbears to help deal with traitors or imposters elsewhere in the dungeon. Okay. They definitely heard the big thunderclap. Would they assume that they're under attack? Or would they just assume that it's like Glassstaff doing some sort of experiment or something? That's a good... I don't know if they did... Because there was no other sounds. There was just a big thunder, and then that was it. They might hear that the shouting and stuff stopped from the other room. Maybe, but they're also, like, barking orders at this goblin. So I don't know if they'd really pay that much attention to the things going on. But they heard the thunderclap, but yeah, I don't know if they would really think that much of it. To like, oh, we're under attack, you know, take ambush positions. Hard to say. They might send one bugbear to like, hey, you know, why is it so quiet? Go check it out. You can go see what's going on with those guys that were gambling. So let's do a luck roll of, do they just ignore it completely, go back to barking orders, and we run this as written? Or do they go send one bugbear to check it out? The question is then, do they go send one bugbear? Nope. Okay. Luck rolls, Oracle rolls going low this time. So they're just gonna be like, oh yeah, okay, damn wizard. And they'll just keep barking orders at Droop here. So when we see this door and we slowly go out to investigate, we see another door there and we hear them barking orders in Goblin, and Bertrice, as we saw, understands Goblin. And so, yeah, I mean, they're barking orders, and I hate that when it's like, as a DM, because I'm not very creative. So he's just like, they understand the language, and it's like, what are they saying? What is he saying? What sort of thing is he barking? You know, what's going on? It's like, I don't know, man. He's barking. He's telling this goblin to shove his thumb up his ass. I don't know. Don't ask me. Just accept that he's giving cruel commands and barking orders at something. And it sounds like there's a few of them. So I would say, fuck it. You know, let's, same song, second verse is how I would say it. Although the positioning here is kind of worse. This is a tight quarter. I think probably I could make the argument that Grognan kicks open the door and Bertrice runs in to cast. And I would probably count that as surprise. So I would say we could do that. But my positioning would be worse, because Bertrice is going to have to go in on her own here. So if I fail initiative on the first round, assuming they're not all dead, and these are bugbears, so they're probably not going to be dead. That could be very bad for Bertrice. The alternative is Grognan runs in and tries to do a cleave, but we don't really want to hurt his luck any more than we have to. compared to Thunderclap kind of working out well. So I think we'll do it this way. Karognan will kick open the door, and she'll immediately run in and Thunderclap again, and it'll be the same setup. I don't normally like to repeat my same shit, but also, if I'm playing normally with a DM, I'm usually a lot more conversational than this. Not everything is an encounter that needs to be killed. I would definitely be the type to talk my way through this whole place, and try and just like join the red brands and get close to Glassstaff and find out what I can, and weave some elaborate lie before eventually like slitting his throat or something. That's normally how I operate, but here it's, yeah, I always treat it a bit more combative. So, well, alternatively, we could use Weave Smoke to funnel smoke under the door and wedge the door shut, and just smoke them all out and kill them. We have to assume this is a relatively small room, but we don't know if there's any other exits. That's the only thing. So it's a little meta for me to try that, because they could just, as far as I know, they could just go out some other door. Ideally, we'd like try and look under the door crack and just kind of examine the room, see if there's another doorway. I don't know where I'd get a large amount of smoke. There is a bunch of torches around, so maybe we... And look, this whole thing is candles. It's not really much smoke, though. I'd have to burn something. Oh, maybe I could burn the beaver pelts. This is an elaborate plan. This is definitely something I would do if I was playing normally. Like with a DM, I'm saying, just because I find it fun. But, you know, there is an element of solo RPGs. It's just not quite as fun compared to having like a group of people there to kind of play off of and entertain or annoy or something. And with my beaver pelt nonsense. So we'll do it this way and boom, kick door open. So we need bugbears. We have Clarg, so I guess we'll use Clarg. Damn, this room is fucking small. There's 4 bugbears in here. And a goblin. Droop. Okay, that's our setup. You can already see the problem. If I want to catch them all within with Thunderclap, I am going to have to target myself. And if I am deaf, I can't cast any more spells. But I think that's okay. I think we'll accept that. Fuck it, let's do it. I want to catch all of them. That means I'm probably going to kill innocent Droop, who's just been getting fucked by a bunch of bugbears, but so be it. Roll my arcane lore and use my spellcraft. Arcane lore, +1. Failure, 19. Thankfully not a fumble, so I can re-roll this. +1. Great success. Now, the spell system for Tales of Argosa, the spells actually do have great success effects. If you roll a great success when casting them, they do get better. I don't really think I should incorporate that into copying the axe spells. I think it gets a little... The reason it does that is mostly, I feel, because they are level-less spells. So you kind of just get better at spellcasting sort of as time goes on. You're more likely to get these great successes. So that's kind of how you grow more powerful with spells. Whereas Axe, we actually have spell levels. So you get access to more powerful stuff. So it's not quite as necessary. So I don't really want to introduce that. So as far as I'm concerned, spellcasting, great success doesn't do anything, because otherwise I'd have to come up with some sort of blanket rule for any axe spell of what happens when you get a great success, which seems dangerous. Or I'd have to come up with specific stuff for, you know, all the spells or many of the spells or something. Neither one seems great. I mean, you could do it so that, like, if you get a great success, any numerical effect is increased by 50%. Or one numerical aspect of the spell cast is increased by 50%. You could just do that. Just a blanket thing. Is that good? I don't know. What would that mean for Thunderclap if we were to do that? Well, so it'd be 1d6, and then it would be 50% on top of that. Now would that be a 1d6 plus 1d3? I mean, that's fair, probably, I would say. Or you could do the 1d6 and then add half of the result on top of it. But probably the 1d3 result is, or the answer is easier. Or you could make it so that the range is 50% farther. So it's 135 feet. Or you could do it so that the target's within 7.5 feet are affected. I guess you could pick any of those. Any sort of numerical aspect of the spell. Now that I say all that, I'm kind of tempted. That is a very easy way to do it. Like, it's very blanket and just like, I mean, it gets annoying perhaps depending on the spell and like trying to figure out 50% of certain things and blah blah blah. But it is very blanket, very easy to just be like, yeah, if you're a spellcaster, keep that in mind if you roll a great success on a spellcast. And one numerical effect is increased by 50%. It's not massive, it's not double. It's just kind of like, oh, that's nice. That helps. For Weave Smoke, you know, it could be 1,500 cubic feet up to 150 feet per round. It could be last 3 turns instead of 2 turns. That's probably all the numerical effects. I think the range might be affected as well. You could weave it into a 1.5 feet thick, I suppose, if you wanted to affect that. Pretty much any number that is applied to a spell or part of a spell. Huh. Yeah, now that I say all that, that does kind of sound fun. But I am a fan of powerful spells, so that's maybe just that bias speaking. Oh, hold on. Fox, it lags out again. Yeah, that might work. I mean, I just kind of want to maybe glance at a few other spells to figure out how broken that might be, how broken it might get. Combining that with, like, being able to upcast spells. All right, Cone of Paralysis. So if we get great success on that, it would be... Well, basically, there's 3 numbers that I see. So you could make it 90 feet long, or you could make it 45 feet wide. And if they fail their save, they would become paralyzed for 9 turns. Those are your 3 options to affect Cone of Paralysis on a great success. I think that's all fair. I don't see anything majorly wrong with that. Conflagration. Now, here's plenty of numbers because it has many different uses. For one, you could affect the range of the cast up to, 540 feet. Yeah. So that's pretty far. You could make it 15 feet high. I don't know why you'd pick that exactly, but it's an option. 90 feet in diameter. That would definitely be a potential option. But again, you wouldn't know if you're going to get a great success before you roll. So you wouldn't really be able to plan around it that much. It's just kind of like, oh, that's nice. So, you know. It's, I mean, again, some of these are some of these require conversion kind of as we go. Like it says here, make an attack throw against AC 0. That doesn't really make much sense in Tales of Argosa. Even if I... Yeah, you wouldn't be able to... There's no... Because what would be the attack throw for a caster? In Axe, that's an obvious answer. Tales of Argosa doesn't make much sense unless you just mean... Yeah, I'd have to convert it no matter what. I'd probably make it some sort of arcane lore roll. Perhaps with a modifier. Because attack throw against AC 0 is decently hard, although it is an arcane level 6 spell. At that point, you know, you're dealing with a lot of AC 0 stuff. But that just determines where the conflagration is centered. And if you critically fumble that roll, it's centered upon yourself. Then there's numbers for how much it scatters, but you wouldn't pick that for your great success. And honestly, with a great success, I might even just say you can ignore the scatter roll and just whatever. But I don't know. Blah blah blah. But then they make a saving throw. All creatures within the conflagration. If they fail, they suffer 2d6 plus 2 damage. So, I think that would just add 1d6 onto it. That would basically be it would add 1d6 plus 1, I suppose. So the total would be 3d6 plus 3, which is pretty nice. That's probably what you would pick on a great success, but you might change it to be 90 feet in diameter instead if you really need a huge range. And that, though, changing that number would also change the damage value against structures that it goes on there. Stuff like that. Yeah, I think honestly it's a decent rule that I kind of want to add just to make it fun. Granted, I do think that makes spellcasting even more powerful because melee characters don't get anything on a great success. You know, because they do attack rolls. There is no great success. They can crit, and they can get expanded crit range. You know, a fighter at high level crits on an 18, 19, or 20. Whereas this would be... It wouldn't be as good as critting. And to be fair, spellcasters in Tales of Argosa don't get anything special for critting on their spell rolls. They get the great success stuff, and that's it. But I think it's somewhat in line with the Tales of Argosa design philosophy, especially considering that it's low fantasy. So, yeah, fuck it. Great success adds 50% onto some numeric value. But then I think it's important to balance that a little bit by saying that if you roll a natural 20 on this casting roll, a critical fumble, you can't re-roll that. That is a critical failure, and you have to immediately roll a dangerous and dark magic effect, which hasn't come up because I haven't cast that many spells. But I think that is important to maintain that you can't re-roll that. And I think that might be a house rule. I think normally you can always re-roll anything. But specifically for spellcasting, to maintain a little bit of that dangerous magic aspect, I am insisting on that rule at my table. All right, so with all that in mind, we cast Thunderclap. We got a great success, so we are going to make it 1d6 plus 1d3 damage. Pretty great, except that we're also getting affected by this, so it's not that great. I could alter it so that it's a little bit extra range, and so it probably could hit everybody but me, but we'll go for damage. We'll go for broke, because I assume these are a little bit tougher enemies. How tough? I don't think I want to go with Clarg's stats, because he was kind of a special bugbear. So we want to figure out standard bugbear. No, I think we just used the Tales of Argosa stats. Let's look at D&D. They have it at 6 hit dice. 4 of them. All right, well then fuck it. I have to kind of maintain. This is not an easy fight. So I will use Tales of Argosa stats. 3 hit dice. Yeah. All right. So this is going to be. They're going to make their luck rolls. Again, they have a luck of 6 and they have a strength of 18. That is significant. I believe that gives them a +3. Somewhere. Yep, +3. So that gives them a total of 9. So they have to roll twice and get 9 or less on both dice. The first one fails. Second one fails. Third one fails. Fourth one fails. Excellent. And then the little goblin, who almost assuredly is just absolutely fucked. Yeah, he's definitely fucked. And Bertrice has to make her luck, strength, disadvantage, terrible failure. Doesn't really matter. So she'd have to roll 11 or less on both. Yeah, I guess I'll re-roll. I don't know if you get to roll both again or not. I don't need to roll both again, but it often would be relevant. Oh, I don't know, man. Usually you only get to re-roll 1. That's generally how it goes. So you're asking a lot of me to try to find a specific ruling here. If advantage or disadvantage applies, only one of the results are re-rolled. Okay. So we're re-rolling our 16 and keeping our 3. And we got a 5. So she did succeed. She won't be deafened, and she will take half of whatever the final result is. So this is going to be 1d6. 1d6 plus 1d3. 5. Yeah, okay. So she'll take 2. The goblin's dead. Ears explode. The bugbear's not dead. Injured, but not dead. And probably quite upset. They're all deaf, but it doesn't really matter much. So they have 3 hit dice, right? Which means that they have 13. Yeah, 13 hit points. So now they're all down to 8. Okay. That was our surprise. So now we roll initiative, and we're going to go with Jabroni initiative. Failure. You cannot re-roll initiative as far as I understand. Yeah, attribute checks. Luck rolls, death saves, short rest, willpower, recovery checks. No initiative. So this is very bad. This is going to be very painful. Yeah, there's not much I can do. Not much I can do at all. So they're definitely going to move in. They are unarmed. So they're going to be using their claws. And according to Tales of Argosa, they get 2 claw attacks at 1d4 plus 1 and a bite attack at 1d6. And they're rolling all their attacks at +3. Which means that this is very deadly. The only exception to this is if you could argue that part of the surprise is I immediately back out of the room. But I could have sworn there was a rule where you can't break up your movement. So I don't think you can move in, attack, and then move out. I'm pretty sure. I'd have to find specific rules on movement. Yep, a move cannot be broken up with an action. An attack, casting a spell, etc. ends the move. There's no ifs, ands, or buts. And I don't think I could say that Grognan could move in before initiative happens. So, yeah, we just have to go through with this. This is very painful. Because as far as I can reasonably allow, there's going to be 3 on her. And they get a +3, +2 from all flanking her. So they're rolling +5 on 3 attacks each. She is fucked. She is massively fucked. It also says if both of the claw attacks hit, the target suffers 12 damage. Ignore normal claw damage. And if they roll a natural 19 or 20, they go into a rage, taking half damage until end of combat. And they will also kill unconscious victims with their next action if the body is not recovered. Great. I think this is the end of Bertrice. She went out with a bang. Alright, so first guy. I'm going to roll the 2 claw attacks. This is, again, +5 on both of them. So we got a 13 and an 18. So they both hit, which means she takes 12 damage. And brings her down to 1. She's so fucked. Okay, and then the bite attack. This is a 3 hit dice creature. Seems very painful. Right, so third one. Fumble. Okay, it does qualify her for a melee counter, but she doesn't have a melee weapon out. Okay, second one. Oh yeah, she's dead. Got a 17 and a 22, so she's down. It doesn't really matter. Okay, and then so her body is there. We'll say that was their turn, just shredding her. She still could survive, theoretically, but yeah, that's it. Okay, now we get to go. So Grognan, of course, is going to step in. He's pissed. He's fucking pissed, man. Great Axe coming out. He's going to rage. Here comes the rage. Excellent. Great Axe, +2. +2. Go. Fucking Christ. He rolled a 3. Yep, that's how it goes. That's how it goes. Okay, that's all he's got. He doesn't really have anything else. So, Jabroni will step in, and, I don't know, I guess move over here. Swing at this one. That's probably where I should do some sort of major exploit, but he's technically not a player character, so he doesn't have access to him. He's just going to swing his battle axe normally. Okay, it's a hit for 2 damage. Great. So this guy's taken 7 damage out of his 13. He's wounded. And I suppose he'll do a minor exploit to try to knock him to the ground. No, that's a terrible idea. Fucking pocket sand is the right idea. Dex versus Dex. Alright, we succeeded by 4. Got a Dex of 9. He succeeds by 4, so no go. Alright, that's it. That's the round. So now we go to Grognan, who's going to fail his initiative, and we're all going to die. Yep, that happened. So now Grognan has to face off against the same butchering. This guy will squeeze around. Alright, so the first set of claws. Again, +5, so that's 1 hit for 1d4 +1. 3 damage to Grognan. And then the bite attack. Miss. Okay, next set of claws. That is 1 hit for 1d4 +1. 5 damage to Grognan. Followed by the bite attack, which is a hit for 1d6, 6 damage, of course. Third set of claws. We got 1 hit for 1d4 plus 1. Doesn't matter. He's down. That is 4 damage. He's down. And then the last guy, 2 claws at Jabroni. That is, 1 hit for 1d4 plus 1, 2 damage. And the bite attack hit for, he's also a natural 19. So he does 1 damage, and then he rages, taking half damage until end of combat. Well, this went sour fast. Jesus Christ. These bugbears might be a little overtuned for a 3 hit dice enemy. I mean, it says for custom monsters, 3 hit dice, their damage should be 1d10. It seems a little bit more than that. Because if all their attacks hit, they do a minimum of 5 damage. And a maximum of 16. So they're doing 5 to 16 damage if all their attacks hit. And they got 3 attacks. That's a lot different than 1 attack doing 1d10 damage. This might be a little overtuned, I feel. Let's compare that again to the actual bugbear. They get 1 attack to deal 2d6 plus 2 damage. If the target is a medium or smaller creature, it has the grappled condition. Or a light hammer, plus 4, if with advantage if the target is grappled by the bugbear. 3d4 plus 2 damage. Okay, I mean, technically, they can't... Technically, the Tales of Argosa bugbear can do more damage in a round than the D&D 5th edition one. And, well, that's not even counting that if both of the claws hit, the target suffers 12 damage, ignoring normal claw damage. Which means that, really, a bugbear can do 18 damage if all 3 hit. $5 to 18 damage they can do. Well, no, really, both claws hit. No matter what, it does at least 13 damage. Well, 12 damage. 13 if the bite hits. It seems nuts. It seems like just a bit too much. I don't know. I mean, was I just being dumb? I should have smoked them out. I should have fucking smoked them out. I didn't do it because I was like, well, we just fight everything. We just fight everything. No, don't fight everything. Be smart. Be underhanded. Smoke them out. Why did I do that? Fuck. So I don't know. Yeah. So there's a party retreat. If this at the start of the round, if the whole party wishes to flee from a battle, they must first explain to the GM how escape might be possible. If the GM agrees, a group luck check is required. The GM decides any modifiers, such as dropping food, caltrops, loot, whatever checks are needed to carry allies, etc. If successful, the PCs flee with incapacitated allies over their shoulders, or otherwise as explained by the players. Depending on the circumstances, fleeing may lead to a chase. So, I don't know if that's exclusive to players. I mean, it kind of does sound like it. So I don't know if Jabroni could flee with both of us over his shoulders. I think it would be pretty baller. I'd probably allow it as a DM because it's like, sure, it's going to be tough as hell, but maybe. fuck it. I mean, I'm gonna die anyways, so we'll have Jabroni roll a luck strength with -4, and we'll see if he can manage it. No, but he can re-roll apparently. Yeah, he can re-roll, and he's got 2 of them, so why wouldn't he? There you go. With re-rolls, it's not quite as climactic, is it? It's not quite as fair. I don't know. It seems kind of ridiculous and over the top to imagine Jabroni just carrying a barbarian and this woman over his shoulders as he runs away from the bugbears. And I feel like a chase would occur, and he'd definitely lose. Yeah, I mean, it is what it is. Like this is OSR. You burst into a room and you just like, yeah, we're gonna fight, we're gonna win. And you go in with basically no information. I mean, we knew that they were bugbears. We just didn't know how many there were. And we set it up pretty poorly, where Thunderclap was just like, yeah, Thunderclap will solve all our problems, you know? And it didn't. It didn't at all. It would have been much better for Grognan to go in swinging, but even then, like, it just... No, we should have used the bottleneck here, the corridor to our advantage. And it was just, yeah, it was just kind of a fail all around. So I'm not going to, like, reload or anything, because it was genuinely just a big failure on my part. And it just really stings because I had a decent plan to pump smoke into the room using the beaver pelts, which definitely would have worked. Like, 100%. 100%, like, there's no doubt it would have worked. Well, the only question is, would they be able to break down the door? Because it's just like a wooden door, and there's 4 bugbears that would be like choking out and in a rage or something. So it's very possible they could have broken down the door. They don't have weapons, I guess. They're using their claws. I don't know why I'm not giving them weapons. I should have given them weapons. That fight would have been winnable with weapons. And it's really annoying because I changed that for Clark, the other bugbear. I gave him a weapon. Because I think we just used, like, OSE stats or something. And I was like, no, he's using a weapon. But this is like, alright, we'll just use the Taylor Argosa one where they use their claws. Fuck that. That fight would have been 100% different if I had just given them, like, 1d8 weapons. I mean, it still could have gone the same way, but it would have been a lot better odds. It's a bummer. It's a bummer for sure. The biggest bummer, I suppose, is that I'm going to have to go back to level 1, 0 XP. And basically start with practically nothing again. And that works all right in an open hex crawl where you're just like, okay, well, let's find another kind of low dungeon. Here, where I'm trying to continue and plot and move to the next location, because that's the only source of XP, gets a lot trickier. We're going to have to do, like, just some other side content. Needless to say, the red brands are done. We killed all the bandits, for the most part. So the bugbears will go back to the goblin castle. And Glassstaff, I don't know what he'll do exactly. I guess he can't ambush anybody now, so he'll probably join up with the spider. The real tricky thing outside of starting at level 1 is, how do I pick up the plot narrative? How do I pick up the plot thread to keep going? I had a good explanation for these two. Now it sort of stretches the believability of how we continue. Which is perhaps the biggest issue with running like a D&D 5e sort of narrative-based campaign. In running 5e D&D, the odds of a TPK are extremely slim. Whereas running it with Shadow Dark or OSE or something, very high. And these campaigns are just not suited for TPKs. So, I'm not sure. I mean, we could come to Phandelver for treasure-seeking purposes or something like that, or like, you know, we're doing adventurers work, and we hear about some local troubles because there are, you know, there's side quests from certain, like, dealing with like the orcs at Wyvern Tor, the local priest girl or nun girl or whatever, she came back injured from her recent trip, and so there's some side quests that we could pick up just as being adventurers in the area. And then I guess eventually Sildar could come to us. Maybe he eventually investigates this manor and he finds this lair and he finds our bodies and he finds the letter that we were going to bring to him. So he kind of unravels a little bit more, and then he comes to us and is like, hey, you're adventurers, there's some shit going down that I think you need to be a part of, or you could help out with, you know, to find this spider. And it seems like the goblins are heavily involved here, so you might want to go check out their castle, because someone there might know where this cave is that the spider's at. I think that's how we should do it. So, yeah, we're not gonna finish here because I want to get further past this, but this is now our second TPK. But the thing is, though, all these TPKs are not just like, wow, this is so unfair, this is hard, you know, I can't, like, all these were preventable, and that's important. I think it always should be preventable if you know where you went wrong, you know what you could have done differently, to be smart about it. I just used fucking Weave Smoke a second time. I mean, that wouldn't be the end-all be-all. But using the corridor to our advantage, using our numbers to our advantage compared to them, yeah, let's flank your magic user entirely and claw them to shreds. To shreds! So we'll pick it up with 2 new characters, and I think now that I'm into class design, I think what I would like to try is using 2 new custom classes. So I don't know if one of them is going to be the Paladin, because with 2 characters, that's not supremely advantageous, having like a charismatic leader for my 2-player solo thing. So I'm going to have to come up with 2 more custom classes, but that's my homework. One of them's almost certainly going to be a Scion, and then perhaps an assassin, or if I can come up with some other martial character. But I'm usually worse at coming up with stuff like that. I don't really want to do a sword mage. I prefer something more tanky. But I don't know. I don't. Maybe I shouldn't plan it based around melee combat. I should plan it around being smart. So maybe an assassin might be of value to me. I don't know. I'll see what I come up with, but that's my homework. Coming up with 2 new custom classes to play around with. Yeah. Bummer, but it happens. That's part of the experience. All right. My name is Mang. This has been Solo Roll Manging with Tales of Argosa. And I'll see you fine folks in the next part.